Hello and welcome back to the TCM YouTube channel, where I'm delighted to say that today we have a very special guest joining us. It's none other than CEO of Leicestershire County Cricket Club, Sean Jarvis. Sean, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Simon. Yeah, really good. Yourself?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Let's waste no time, get straight into it. And I wanted to start really back at the start because you've been CEO at Leicestershire for quite a long time now. And you took over in 2020, is that right? I believe around that time.
Yeah,
And obviously we were in a pandemic at that time, so you've navigated us through some tough times. I was wondering what was it like guiding a club like Leicestershire through the back end of a global pandemic, and how do you reflect on your tenure as CEO so far?
yeah, great question. It's been a real challenge. I joined Leicestershire 2 days before the pandemic struck, so it was a challenge. And my first task was really to send everybody home. They all went home, and then it was a case of looking at how we operated during that period, really. And one by one, we brought people in uh, to sort of help the organisation get through the pandemic, and it was a challenge, but we got through it. We reached out to our membership, and they helped us, and sort of re-engaged with a few local businesses to help us. So, in an ironic way, it was actually a positive period. I think we used the time wisely, really. And one of the things I always say is that we we use COVID to press the reset button. So, in other words, use that time whilst cricket kind of carried on. It was behind closed doors. We use that time to sort of look at ourselves, look at how we operate, look at the DNA of the club, and try and rediscover why we were successful. Some, in the late '80s, and then the 2006 to 11 period, and try and rediscover that form. So it was a good period in that sense that allowed us to just look back at what made us successful and try and refine that, really. I think in sort of reflecting on my time here as chief exec at Leicestershire, we're putting the club back on the right path. I think since 2011, the club has, for whatever reason, and there are many reasons, has declined. Memberships declined, successes declined. We've had the odd encouraging sign, one or two players coming through, but it's been a real barren spell for one reason and another. I think now what we've done, or in doing, is trying to put the right foundations in place that mean we can really start to progress. It's interesting. I've just been reflecting on the 5-year plan that I talk about, and year one was one of dealing with COVID. Year two was then emerging, which was last year, emerging from the COVID pandemic. And then now it's about how we build on those foundations that we've created. So I'm pleased with how things have gone. Or you could always want more. I'd like to. I've seen some silverware in the cabinet, but I think overall the general direction of travel is good. And you look at things like some key performance indicators like membership, revenues, performances on the pitch, personal bests, all those things, and we've achieved an awful lot of those. So I'm happy that our direction is one of going forwards, really.
Good, that's great to hear. And it sort of brings me on to my next question as well. And we'll talk about stuff off the field a bit later on. But if we're sticking with on the field, obviously
Yeah.
you mentioned there that you have Leicestershire as a club have lacked some silverware and lacked some success in recent years. But I'd argue there was some encouraging signs in the Blast last year, and obviously County Championship didn't go how you'd hope. But what do you think about the signs you're seeing? Is the progress under Paul Nixon and the head coach and that team, are you moving in the right direction as a club at the moment?
Yeah, without question, we are moving in the right direction. I think if you take the white ball to begin with, we qualified for the 50 over quarterfinals, beaten by an ex-player, Darren Stevens, really, when we played Kent, who obviously went on to win it. We were, in my opinion, we did qualify for the quarterfinals of the T20, but we were deducted 2 points by the CDC panel, which meant that we didn't qualify. So that was tough to take. But, you know, in terms of white ball, I'm actually very comfortable that we're developing into a formidable team. You look at some of the players that played for us during that period have really started to shine and show their abilities. You know, Vian Mulder, one of our overseas players who played for us in the latter stages of the T20, was excellent. Naveen, leading wicket taker last year, very close to being leading wicket taker again this year. So the emergence of Rehan Ahmed, Callum Parkinson, great performances. So I think white ball, I'm really pleased with how that is progressing. Red ball, slightly different sort of take on it. Very disappointed where we finished. But that said, it's strange. I actually begin to see a bit of the emergence of some of those players who I think are going to contribute for us next year. And I think what we've also done in terms of the red ball is bolstered the coaching with Paul Nixon. So we've got Claude Henson as director of cricket. He's identified a need for a batting coach, so we brought in James Taylor, former player, ECB selector. I know James has been working tirelessly with the players in the indoor nets. So I'm really pleased with how that's kind of working. That's shaping up. I think one or two of our players, more so than ever before, have gone to overseas. So one or two Australia, one or two Zimbabwe. I think one or two are going out to the Caribbean. So I think we're shaping up nicely, really. With at the end of the day, the results are everything in sport, and I think we'll see when the season comes around. But we've got a couple more announcements to make in terms of signings that are going to be joining us. In the meantime, we've brought in Matt Salisbury from Durham, Michael Finnan, who joined us at the end of last year, showed some real promise, and I think with a tough winter schedule, he's going to be a proper player. So I'm encouraged. I'm confident that we're again heading in the right direction as a club. So red ball work to do, but I'm quietly confident we can really sort of make good progress in the coming season. White ball, I think we'll be turning into a formidable team. So we're starting to rediscover that DNA that I talk about. That I think is coming back. The whole culture around the place is beginning to improve. Not 100% there yet, but we are heading in that right direction.
And you talk about the culture and the DNA. Now, one rising star who you mentioned there, and we're speaking on the eve of this, nearish the start of the Pakistan Test series, and obviously Leicestershire, born and bred, Rehan Ahmed, star of the club. He's had a meteoric rise, I think it's fair to say. How important is it for you at Leicestershire to have homegrown talent like Rehan? And what was your reaction when you heard that he was getting a call up for this men's Test series?
Yeah, you sort of raised a couple of points there. I'll start with what the feeling was like. We were having a training day at the club actually, where our off the field staff were going through some sort of safeguarding and all those sorts of different parts of the business that we have to develop as well. And the news came through that Rehan had been selected, and the excitement and pride in the room, not just from me as chief exec, but from all the staff, was really, really nice to see. It was a great moment for the club, really. So here we're incredibly proud of Rehan, as we are all our players and what they do for the Running Foxes. You know, they believe in us, we'll believe in them. So yeah, long may that continue, mate. You know, we want him to be successful, and we'll do everything we can to help him and continue his path for hopefully a very successful long future and successful career ahead of him. The pathway is hugely important to a team like Leicestershire. I think one thing that we identified, Claude, the director of cricket, identified when he came into the role, was that there was a bit of a blockage in our twos. We had a big squad, so a lot of players that were coming through our academy were struggling to get that opportunity. We've kind of thinned that out a little bit now. So what we're seeing now is that we will have plenty of our twos players given that opportunity to go into the twos and prove themselves. And we believe in the talent that's coming through. You know, only this morning I was talking to Jiganake, our head of our pathway, and talking about the players that we've got coming through. And I think one of them is actually training with the first team at the moment, which is great experience. So I'm really encouraged. We signed Josh Hull on a pro contract. I think he's going to be a talent. He was a bit like Rehan. I sort of said to him, you know, where do you want to go? And he said, I want to go all the way to the top. I want to play for England. So I've sort of said, well, if you've got that appetite, we'll do everything we can to help you get to the top. So you know, never lose sight of that, even when the times are tough. So for us, the pathway is huge, very important. Part of our DNA, and we've got great history in that with the likes of Stuart Broad, James Taylor, Darren Maddy, David Gower. You know, so there's a good heritage there, to name just a few. So I'm again excited by that, excited by what Rehan can achieve, and excited by what the pathway can provide Leicestershire with in the coming years.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point. It's very encouraging to see these counties, especially because Leicestershire went through, you know, a bit of a rough patch, as you said. It's nice to see it coming back, and I feel like the foundations are indeed there. Let's stick with players just for a moment. And you mentioned the re-signing of Rehan Mulder. How important is it as a club to have overseas players in your roster who are loyal to you and you can call on just to bolster the squads a bit when you get towards the start of the season?
Yeah, without question. I think you know, Rehan is a fantastic gent on and off the field, to be honest, and he fitted in extremely well here at Leicestershire. The lads really enjoy his company and his expertise, and I think for us last year we saw Rehan start slowly, but then as the season progressed, turned into a brilliant cricketer for Leicestershire. And what I really liked was the camaraderie that was developed. And then we obviously chatted to Rehan about kind of coming back, and you know, he didn't think twice. He was kind of, yeah, I love Leicestershire. I really enjoy it here. His partner who came over with him really enjoyed it, and she was actually helping selling cakes. We're pretty famous for here in Leicestershire, I hasten to add. And she was involved in it. So it was a real lovely atmosphere and feeling that Rehan had found his, I guess, spiritual English home. And people like Naveen will be back for his third year. So having those players settled and be part of the culture and the DNA that we're trying to create, massively important to us, you know, and as I say, we've got one or two more little announcements to come, and I hope those people that we announce will be part of this culture that we're developing, because we're not a big club. We've got great heritage, but we're growing, and we're probably, I would say, we're the fastest growing cricket team. Our figures on our YouTube and all that sort of thing are just all pointing northwards, and for me, again, demonstrates that we're kind of on the right path. Success is not linear. It ain't going to happen progress. You're going to have a little bit of a dip, and maybe have a bit of a spike. But as long as we're heading in that direction, general direction, then we're doing something right. And I think, hard work is what makes you travel in the right direction. And that's something that we have to do here at Leicester. And our budgets are tight, so we have to make them work hard as well.
Well, it'd be great to see. Hopefully, you will have those successes in the coming years. Now, I'm probably going to turn to something that you've probably been dreading about every interview you've done in the past, like however long it's been rolling on for. But we'll turn to the domestic schedule. And Andrew Strauss's proposals obviously came out, and I read an article in the Telegraph the other day. You've been quite outspoken about how you felt about his proposals towards Leicestershire. Why do you feel so strongly about Strauss's high performance proposals, and why did you feel that it just wasn't the right thing to do for Leicestershire? If you could maybe explain that.
Yeah, of course, it's not like me to be outspoken, but yeah, there were elements of the high performance review that I can't argue with. I think they're excellent, and there's even an argument that should have been done a long time ago. So they're to be applauded and welcomed and implemented. If Cricket PLC can afford it, then we should be doing that. Where it becomes an issue for us as a club is the impact it would have on our existence, and whether our members disagree with the fundamental principles that were put forward. And, if we don't listen to our members, then what's the point of us being here? So we have to have that dialogue, which we did, and that was important. But I think once you reduced the high performance review and looked at then the impact, the commercial impact it would have had on us, it would have threatened our very existence. Well, that's turkeys voting for Christmas. There's just the way that's going to happen. And what I struggle to understand was that we're tasked with increasing the reach of the game, of trying to get people into cricket, of build Leicestershire County Cricket Club, make it stronger. And yet the performance review talked about reducing the amount of cricket we played here at Grace Road. Well, that to me doesn't make sense. You can't have one and the other. And then when you speak to our players, they all wanted to play cricket. So once you look at that bit by bit, it then didn't stack up for us. So we had to reject those proposals. We remain committed to how we develop the game, how it goes forward, how we can increase participation, how we can get a stronger England team. That goes without saying. We want to do that, but not at the expense of our existence. That can't be right. I've always sort of said the game should be expanded. How we get more teams involved in some way, shape, or form. And some of the ideas that I'll have won't be agreed by Surrey or Durham or whoever. That's part and parcel of collaboration, negotiation to get where we want to. So for me, number one priority, I do have to protect Leicestershire County Cricket Club and make sure we progress. But two, also work with the other counties to build Cricket PLC. So the high performance review is not dead. I guess it's a case of, right, well, how do we actually expand the game, get England as a better nation, and it'll be interesting. Should we, God forbid, get beat by the Aussies? I suspect it might rear its head again, and there'll be another discussion around the review. But for me, it's interesting. I come from a football background. I've been involved in football and rugby league, and I think cricket is a little bit behind in terms of its technology, in terms of its sports science. And I think that needs some investment into it to actually develop the game a bit more and develop how coaches can improve. So, one of my simple ideas is that in the UK, during those winter months, we struggled to get out on pitches. Well, surely if every county had a marquee where it can actually play outdoors and practice, then that would be a good thing for our cricketers to develop, as opposed to indoor nets all the time. So I think, why don't we all collectively, Cricket PLC, and make sure every county has got one of those marquees, and work with the people like Loughborough University to introduce technology and help. We're trying to do that a little bit here at Leicestershire, but I think Cricket PLC could do that. And I'm genuinely excited about the future cricket actually holds, if truth be known.
Yeah, and I wonder, obviously, there's the 100 and everything. I wonder if the sentiment you've just said about the high performance review and how you felt about it, I wonder if you felt that was almost a strong feeling amongst the counties, amongst your fellow chairmen, because as you said, they all have different views on these things. And I don't think you're ever going to sit all 18 counties in a room together and get them all to go, yes, we agree on absolutely everything. But I wondered how you felt that sort of sentiment went down and how the other counties felt about that. Is it Leicestershire out on their own? If you see what I'm trying to get at there.
No. What was interesting when I actually came out and commented about the finances, the impact the finance it would have on Leicestershire, and what could ultimately happen. I actually received, I think it was 3 text messages from other chief execs saying, well said, somebody needed to say it. Another one said, I've just worked out my finances. It would mean 300 grand losses. So people were, I think, were understanding of now how the impact of that could actually have on them as their counties. So it was interesting. I saw comments from Sussex, Essex, Gloucestershire, all making their own voices heard in their own way. So there was a groundswell of I'm not sure these proposals are right. Some of the counties would agree with them, and some encouraged for them to be put through. But how could we vote for something that would threaten our existence? It just couldn't happen.
Yeah, and just one final thing before we move on, because I do want to get to some other things away from the domestic schedule. But I think there's been a big news story in the past couple of days about this possibility of private equity. Now, obviously, that is just a rumour and the ECB haven't confirmed it. But I wonder, as a man who's been in football, rugby, as you say, how would you feel about private equity investment in cricket? And how would you possibly feel about the money that would come with that for counties? Or do you feel that that's not right because it may split the game, if you see what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, I think so. I think investment in the game is good as long as it's spent in the right way. As you sort of said, it's a lot of speculation around investment into the 100 game, and I dare say there'll be more to run on that in terms of where it goes. Who knows what might happen? But I actually do think that private investment will eventually come more and more into the game. My thoughts are, rightly or wrongly, I think in years to come, we will see South Asian billionaires wanting to buy, cricket clubs. Whether that is going to happen or not, your guess is as good as mine. But I wouldn't do this, of course. But let's say we put Leicestershire up for sale. I'm pretty certain there would be a number of buyers that would want to actually purchase Leicestershire, but that, of course, would have to be discussed with our members. That goes without saying. As I sort of said, it is the members that run Leicestershire, really. But I think that investment into cricket is coming, and I think it's coming from overseas. What was interesting for us was that we saw huge spikes in interest when we played India in a pre-season game, a pre-test game here at the Upton Steel County Ground, when they came and played in this warm-up prior to playing at Old Trafford, and we streamed the game. The numbers were astronomical in terms of people that were actually viewing that. So that tells you something. There is potential revenues from investors that may come into it. So who knows where it will go? But I think the key is we can't afford cricket to be in a situation whereby you chase the dream and it goes bust. Sort of Bury, it springs to mind, is one, the high profile one that somebody chased the dream, spent an awful lot of money and jeopardised the club. You've got to protect against things like that. And I think, that governance aspect has got to come into it when eventually those big investments come into grounds.
Yeah, let's get away from that now and talk about something else that's very exciting that's been happening at Leicestershire in the past few years, and that is, of course, international cricket and England's women back playing at the Upton Steel Ground next year. How important is it for you as a club to be staging those international matches, and what sort of opportunity does it give you? And would you like to see more of them at the Upton Steel Ground?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, for us, it's been brilliant. This year, we saw a real spike again in people purchasing tickets, which was brilliant. We had, I think, record crowds for Women's International here at Leicestershire, and I think that's down to a little bit of the 100, the exposure that the women's game has got. I know women's cricket in Leicestershire is growing brilliantly at this moment in time, and we've got lots of teams that are joining sort of local leagues, which is fabulous. We've got Sri Lanka coming up next year, so we're looking forward to that international. So I'm really pleased with how the internationals, women's internationals here, have taken off in Leicestershire, and I think for us, long may that continue. Already, we've got tickets on sale a lot earlier this year for our Sri Lanka game next year than we've ever done before. They're selling really well. So I'm excited by that. I know when the England team do come here that they have a good time. They always say they love our food that our chef provides. So yeah, we're really pleased with how that's going. Our ambition is to develop the ground a bit, improve the facilities, make it more of an experience for people when they come, of all backgrounds. So for me, it's an exciting future that women's cricket can bring to Leicestershire. So for us, yeah, looking forward to that.
I totally agree, and we are running out of time. But before we go, I just want to give you two quick questions about yourself, really, and cricket, and you. So I was just wondering, firstly, who was your favourite cricketer when you were growing up?
Oh, yeah, my favourite cricketer, it was a fella called Andy Roberts.
No.
West Indian bowler that played for Leicestershire. Not necessarily opening bowler, but first change, and always had that knack of getting wickets. So I used to love watching him. There were one or two others. I always enjoyed watching Brian Davidson, which was Rhodesian as he was back then playing. Ahead of his time, he used to be high impact cricketer, get to the wicket and then hit the ball all over the place. So those two were terrific. Club, I must mention my club president, Jack Birkinshaw, of course. Otherwise he always criticised me if I don't say he's the best ever Leicestershire player. So I've got to mention him, of course. But watching David Gower in full flow was brilliant. Jonathan Agnew, Phil Simmons, Philip de Freitas, Paul Nixon, Claude Henderson. So we've had some Chip Broad, we've had some Darren Maddy. I keep going on and on. Anil Kumble was here. We've had some real players at Leicestershire that and a couple more have sprung to mind. Chris Lewis, that have provided a real sparkle to the ground, and I want to get that sparkle back. And we've got those players. We've got Rehan Ahmed. We've got Callum Parkinson. Colin Ackerman when he's in full flow. Rishi Patel, real potential. Mike Feenan, is a bit like an alley cat. A real battler. Chris Wright, season. So there's something there. Being Mulder. So we've got something. We've just got to build on that sparkle and try and get those good times back to Grace Road.
And just briefly, I think you've already sort of answered this in your last answer. But do you play club cricket? And if you do, are you a batter or a bowler? What's your form like? And I hope have you been training in the off season yet?
Yeah, I'm pretty. My days of playing sport, apart from golf, are pretty much finished now. The body's knackered. It's gone through the mill playing football and cricket back in the day. But I did play a charity game up in Yorkshire not long back, and I think I was 6 out, something like that, and 0 for 14. I always wanted to be a batter, but I was more of a Geoffrey Boycott than an Alex Hale, shall we say. But I'm probably a better bowler than I am a batter. I used to be medium. Now I'm kind of off spin, I think, really.
Fantastic. Sean, thank you very much for your time.